president, when he comes into office, has short-term and long-term challenges. This year is going to be no different. What is increasingly different is that there's an international connection that the president needs to take into account when making any decision. Short-term problems are really pretty straightforward. U.S. unemployment rate's very high. The president will be under intense domestic pressure to change that. The fact is the president has very few tools to immediately get the unemployment rate down. Despite the political pressure, that's the reality. The longer term problems, the ones that really the president's going to have to worry about, I would say are debt and economic growth. The U.S. has been borrowing far more than is sustainable over the last 30 years under both Republican and Democratic stewardship. Moving forward, we need to change that, in large part because we're relying on foreign sources of funds to live beyond our means. And that can change dramatically. If you look at Italy and Spain in recent years, a loss of confidence in those government bonds has resulted in spiking interest rates, very much lower economic growth. The next president needs to avoid that, if at all possible. And that's going to take leadership. Leadership both at the presidential level and at the congressional level. And ultimately that means getting U.S. economic growth up. It means getting our revenues more in line with our spending. The latter is really the more difficult part, but it's one that is unavoidable for the president to deal with. Trying to get spending under control with both defense and entitlements is critical. The other is trying to deal with the tax revenues that are coming in. In some ways, the United States need to increase tax revenues, either through tax reform, increased tax rates, higher economic growth, some way to get our economic and fiscal house back in order. This will take compromise, it'll take leadership, and that's something that only the president really can provide. So far the campaigns have been vague on details. There are plans out there to make things better. The question is whether or not, or when, the next president will take the bull by the horns and make things better. If we don't take control, international markets will do so. And I think the former is a much better outcome than the latter.